So I'm back with the webcam video. Cannot remember the last time I made a webcam video. This video is actually filmed on my camera because I did buy a USB port, but it was the wrong USB port. So can't use my camera, and I could use my phone, but whenever I want to be a little more authentic, I like coming to the webcam. Doing webcam videos is probably just one of my favorite things to do. Excuse me. But today I feel like I want to talk about life after writing a book. So, if you follow me on Instagram and TikTok, you would know that I wrote a book back in May. Like, I released it back in May. But for my YouTube subscribers, and you don't follow me on any of my other platforms, you wouldn't know that. But I released the book back in May, May 29th. It's called The Book of Poems and Soliloquies, written by me. And you can buy the physical copy. It's only on Amazon, but you can get the ebook on Apple Books, Barnes and Nobles, Everand, and Kobo, and also on Kindle as well. But this is my book. Yep, I wrote it and everything like that. This is what it looks like. So, and I do have a video on like how to write a book and stuff. And like I said, but that video is in my actual camera because here it is. Here's my actual camera. I still use it to take pictures and stuff. Like I said, I just don't have the USB port for this video because, like I said, I did buy one, but then it was the wrong one, and then I lost the receipt. So I wouldn't have not been able to return it and get money back anyways. So it's like, it is what it is. But I guess I want to talk about life after writing a book, even though it's only been like 3.5 months. Sorry, y'all. I'm trying to position y'all right. But even though it has been about 3.5 months, I feel like I just want to express, and sometimes I feel like I did wrong by not pushing my book hard enough. Sometimes sometimes you just feel like you get that doubt, or like, will my book ever reach the surface of anything? Will anything that you've done release go to the surface of anything? And I feel like I want to kind of relate this back to my content creation and my Instagram and stuff like that. Like, have I come this far just to leave and give up? And I talk to God about it sometimes. Like, I have to have some sort of faith and persevere. I have to keep going. There's just no way, because I've always wanted to write a book ever since I was a little girl. I loved writing. Writing is one of my favorite things. Y'all have seen my soliloquies that I've done on my channel here and there. And writing has just been one of my favorite things. I loved writing short stories as a kid and poetry. So it just made sense to write a poetry book and soliloquies as well, because don't get that twisted. When I tell people about my book, they're like, oh, your poetry book. I'm like, it's not just a poetry book. It is a book of soliloquies as well. Okay, but I think about it sometimes, and I'm like, do people even care that I wrote a book? And you get those questions sometimes, and you get that doubt. Like, do people even care about my thoughts? Do people even care about my art? Do people even care about the gift that God has given me? I think about that all the time. And when it comes to this book, it's like, do people even care that, that I wrote something? I feel like, especially growing up, I was someone who did not move with the crowd. I was not a popular kid. I was none of that. I was someone who always stood in the shadows of life and just watched everything happen in front of me. I never said anything. I never really did anything. And I feel like, do people, and I feel like maybe the few people that do remember me from elementary or middle or even high school, like, wow, she wrote a book. Like, do I even engage in that or anything like that? And I don't know, it's kind of, weird to get something from an old classmate that you never really talked to, or maybe you only recall passing in the hallways, or had one class with freshman year and then that was it. Y'all didn't have no more classes after that. I get it. I understand. But it's like, dang, do people like it? I feel like, because I'm always someone that is like, it always starts in your community. It always starts with friends and family. It always starts with people who kind of know you. They don't have to be close buddies and buddy buddies with you, but at least you grew up with them. It starts there. And sometimes it feels like when those people, don't, it feels like sometimes when those people don't even show the slightest interest, it feels as if you wasted all of your time. And of course, my art and my work is not going to be for everybody. Of course not. And I'm not saying that everything that I do has to be for everybody, because of course it's not. Like, certain pieces of material and content isn't meant for me, but it is meant for someone else, right? But I feel like, and not everybody is a person, not everybody likes poetry. When I was at work one time, I was telling people about, well, I wasn't telling people, but they saw, like, my friend for my birthday, she actually made me a cup with my book on it, right? And it has like Bible verses and stuff on it. And I brought it to work with me one day, and people saw my cup and they were touching it and looking at it, and they're like, wait a minute, you wrote a book? Why didn't you tell anybody that you wrote a book? And I'm like, I just didn't. Well, first of all, most of the time I don't bring my outside life into work. That's just something I don't do. But I was like, oh, I just didn't, mention it to anybody because I just didn't, right? And then they're like, well, what's your book about? And I'm like, oh, it's a poetry book. The moment I said that, everyone kind of just went like, oh, okay. Because everybody doesn't like the art of poetry. Not everybody likes reading poetry and, similes and metaphors and alliteration and hyperbole, personification. People don't like reading certain stuff like that. And that's okay. That's completely fine. That's not your cup of tea. People don't like reading soliloquies. When I wrote my book, a lot of people didn't even know what a soliloquy was. That's why everyone kept referring to it as my poetry book, because it's not just a poetry book. And I get so mad when people are like, okay, so your poetry book, I shut people off so quick. I'm like, wait a minute, before we finish this conversation, it's not a poetry book, it's poetry and soliloquies. And because I remember when I first started presenting my book, everyone was like, what the heck is a soliloquy? I'm like, oh my gosh. And for those of you who don't know what a soliloquy is, even though I've done it on my channel multiple times, a soliloquy is basically thinking thoughts out loud. So technically talking to yourself. That is what a soliloquy is. It's not really that hard to understand, really. I feel like people just, they feel like it's such a hard concept to learn when it's not. So, but that's what I write. I write a lot of, self-reflection and poetry that, the Lord Jesus Christ has spoken to me. And I'll get it. Like, certain genres, like I said, like me, I would never read an action book because action and adventure isn't necessarily my thing. I feel like I would probably read a lot of more books on like Black stories because that's what interests me. Or I go to the store and pick up a poetry book because that is what interests me. Someone may read a true crime book, but that is not something that interests me because I'm not reading anything true crime like. But sometimes it just feels like, dang, but sometimes when you feel like nothing is picking up, do you feel like, dang, would anyone ever care to hear anything I have to say? Especially someone like me coming from my background and how I grew up in the way, I was in school. No one ever heard anything I had to say growing up. Because like I said, I didn't talk. I was pretty shy growing up. And I remember when I was 13, I do remember I did not like people. I tell people that all the time. I'm like, when I was 13, I didn't like talking to anybody. Like, people irritated me so bad. So it's like even a blessing that I'm even talking to people now, because back when I was 13, I could not stand to be around people. I just wanted to be by myself alone. So it's just a blessing now that I'm doing something like this. But what am I trying to say? I just lost my train of thought. But oh yeah, but it's like now that I have a voice, and now that I am starting to speak up more, because like I said, back in my youth, I didn't talk at all. I rarely spoke. I never really said anything. So now that I do have a voice, and now that I am speaking up, does anyone care to hear my voice? Does anyone ever care about anything I have to say? And, I've tried, pushing my book. I did a little promotion on TikTok and stuff like that. I posted, my book constantly on Instagram. But it's like, is any of the support coming from people who follow me? And this is just a question that you have to ask yourself, because it's like, because people can always, congratulate you, and I'm always for that. Don't get me wrong. Don't get that twisted. And I am not ungrateful for that experience. If anyone's trying to sit here and say, oh, you're ungrateful, even if someone just says congratulations, that's not what I'm trying to say. It's like, okay, I appreciate, your words of kindness and your words of encouragement. I do appreciate that. Don't, like I said, please don't get that twisted. But it's like, dang. But where is someone who actually wants to hear what I actually have to say? I love encouragement. I love kindness. But it's like, where are the people who actually want to hear my art? Where are y'all at? Because I love everyone who supports my work, whether you purchase the book or not. I love everyone who does that. And I love everybody. Because Jesus says to love all, But it's like, dang. Does anybody ever care? It's like, does anyone ever care? And I don't know if this is if any author has ever felt this way before. Maybe, of course, I feel like I am not the only author who feels like this, because I know someone out there has probably had the same thought process as me before. Like, just because the community that has known me for so long, people that I went to middle school and high school with, people that I grew up with at church or whatever, or went to a camp with, like whatever. Like, do y'all really care what I have to say? Does my voice matter to you? Does my voice even matter at all? And this is the overall question that I try to ask myself. Does my voice matter to anybody? Of course not. Of course, everybody's not always going to want to hear what I have to say. That's just life. Not everybody's always going to want to hear what you have to say. But at the end of the day, I have to realize that. And I do realize that. But it's like, it feels like no one is listening to anything I have to say. And like I said earlier, it all starts with the community. It all starts in the circle. You don't, like, I feel like community is important. You have to support, the community. You have to start in the inner circle, and then it expands out. But I just feel like, where's the inner circle at sometimes? I'm like, where are y'all at? Where are y'all at? So I guess that's all I have to say. I'm done with this conversation. But what I thought my life was I thought, 3 months ago, once I released the book, my life was going to drastically change. It did not. My life is literally still decent. It is practically still the same cheese. But, what more can I do? I've already promoted my book. I've already said my spiel and my piece. What more can I do? But anyway, that's enough of this video. Hope y'all enjoyed, and bye.